Well, at least significantly, almost entirely.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think we have made a huge advance in that respect. So thanks a lot for that behind the scenes work. Okay, so I really wanted to devote most of this the May meeting to giving our colleagues at ITX the opportunity to present to this group, because as you all know, we had a big day-long workshop back in March, and Julie, Carol, and myself and other folks here at IPM really put a lot of work into, getting people from across the NEWA network in the same room, really strategizing about what, the end user, the growers need moving forward in context to the website redesign. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Spring, who's a technology consultant with ITX. He'll share his screen. He's got a slide deck he'll go through. We already talked in advance. If you have questions or comments as we go along, please speak up. If you want to wait till afterwards, that's fine. Or you can always follow up with me separately afterwards, whatever you're comfortable with. And like I said, we are recording this, so I'll have it up on a private link if you want to look at it later for folks who aren't able to join. So Mike, I'll hand it off to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Is my screen popping up for people?
Do not see it yet. There it is, yes.
All right, perfect. Well, again, my name is Mike Spring. I'm the technology consultant with ITX, and our team performed the strategy workshop back in March for NEWA, and about 20 people altogether. So just wanted to take the time. I know everybody's actually received the product innovation plan, and if you haven't taken a look at it, I think it's right in the invite from this meeting. And the goal today, and my goal today, is just to kind of go over that at a real high level. Just in a slide presentation or a slide format, and kind of give you some context behind what some of those exercises and what the day kind of looked like for us back in March. Certainly, presenting this in this format isn't our my everyday thing. So if there's any questions or if anyone wants to stop me through the presentation and ask anything, feel free to do that. This certainly is an open format on here. So again, the workshop took place on March 9th or 6th, I believe, actually. And the goal of the workshop was really to take a look at how we can create some product momentum for NEWA and the website, and what that kind of means. And at ITX, we have a little bit of a formula on what that looks like. And part of that formula is also a diagnostic tool, and you'll kind of see that up here. What we did in the workshop was a lot of the vision and road mapping stuff. And if we don't have these things, you'll see that the formula is actually a multiplier. If any of these things are zero, we have zero momentum in our product. And we're looking to see where we're missing pieces, and then also put plans in place on how to accomplish those, so we don't have this confusion, resistance, waste, and frustration. I'm sure everyone can relate to this outside of actual software building and have seen these kind of things in life. But if we don't have a vision, we also have a lot of confusion with the team that what we're doing. So if we don't have alignment, there is that confusion. If we don't have motivation, there's resistance. So everybody does have to be involved and kind of have some ownership in that vision and that plan, and certainly be motivated behind it in order to get true momentum behind that. The roadmap is the actual deliverables and what is going to be put out in the plan. So the priority of actual features and functionality and how those stack up and what those look like is what we call the roadmap. And if we don't have a roadmap, we have waste in what we're building with the product. So, we have a lot of teams or products that we've built. And then again, I'm sure you can relate to this in life where, we're building some great things and putting some things out, or some features and functionality out on a regular basis, but it's just the wrong things. And that's where we get the waste. And then, if we don't have the capabilities, whether it's from a technical standpoint, a budgetary standpoint, It could mean any one of those things. We do have frustration. So acknowledging what some of the things that are blocking the momentum is, and then taking a look at those is certainly part of what we did throughout the day. We started off with a SWOT analysis. It wasn't a traditional SWOT analysis. It was more meant just to kind of get a dump of everything that's positive and negative, and get everybody on the same page and start thinking about the product a little bit.
Mike, can you tell folks what SWOT means?
Yes. So the SWOT analysis, for those who don't know, is just your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you'll see on the chart here, you have your positives and you have your negatives, and then you have things that are today, or that we have today, and then also future pieces. So we recognize that there certainly were a lot of strengths on here, and then also from our perspective, there was a lot of opportunity for pieces in the platform. But we certainly want to keep some of those threats and weaknesses in mind as we're taking a look at this as well. And I won't go through all of these, but some of the strengths are certainly that there's the data and the models in there, that it is growers are certainly buying in and using the information. Those weaknesses that we saw were some of the communication pieces, and also some of the funding. And then some of the future opportunities would be to continue improving the models, get additional funding through grants, add some research tools, some personalization, some of those type of things that certainly were opportunities in that. And then taking a look at the threats, that there are some issues if we don't continue to make changes within the system. The credibility of the models, so we want to make sure that the data is certainly credible going forward, and it is today. But we want to maintain that, and keep all of these in mind as we're building out the product in the future state of the product. The next thing we did was a little bit of a perspective map. And that was just taking a look at who's involved in this. Who are the players? What are their roles? Are they internal or external? And this was certainly unique to NEWA and how you guys are operated. And what we determined is that the focus of the product, has to fall on this right side of the quadrants. On the external side. So we do need to, focus in on the growers and the people that are actually using the system. There are many other aspects to the product itself that we do need to keep in mind. But this was just getting it all down and documented on who is involved and what the impacts are to those people as well. And again, there is on each one of these pieces within the product innovation plan, the actual document, this does go into much more detail, so certainly feel free to take a look at that, ask questions later. We're certainly here to not only answer any questions now, but also if any come up as you're reviewing the documentation as well. It was a valuable exercise during the workshop because it allowed the groups to really work through and consider the different perspectives of the different people and how they're going to utilize the platform. Working through that, I did mention that a lot of what we're going to be focusing on are the external people. And the next thing we did was take a look at who those users are. So we analyzed that there are the growers are going to be, if you take a look at the right side of the chart here, your growers are going to be the most prominent group, or from a numbers standpoint. And we're talking about in the thousands there. And then your extensions and station managers, there's certainly hundreds of those. Consultants, there's 75 to 100 consultants using it on a regular basis. And then researchers and also other people. So the left side of this is kind of showing from a quantity standpoint on who the users of the system are. And the right side is when we took a look at it in a little bit more depth, was the actual people that we want to focus in on. And anytime we're taking a look at a system, we really want to make sure that it is user focused. So we want to understand who that primary user is. And that was a big portion of what we did during the day. And what we came to, the conclusion we came to is that the number one person that we should be building this for is the growers. And then a lot of the features and things that will be implemented in that process will take care of the rest of the people. But, you know, as we get down and as we get more developed into the redesign and adding and doing different things, you know, you can start to look at consultants and researchers and some of the other people as well, that maybe there are features here and there that didn't hit on them, but the focus would be on the grower side and kind of in that priority. As I mentioned, you know, experience is the most important piece. A lot of you may have seen, or if you've been in business or taking a look at, or even just looking at things on an everyday, we've always kind of competed in marketplaces on 3 different pieces. And that's, you can either, people say you can pick 2, right? You can either be the fastest, you can be the highest quality, or you can be the least expensive. But you can't have all 3. And what we found is that in today's day and age, there's a limited expectation of quality. You know, it has to at least meet a certain standard of quality. Same thing with speed. And then price has become fairly irrelevant, just because there's so much competition and so much knowledge out there. Unless you have a really, really unique product, that you know, price is something that everybody has to be at least in line with. But the one differentiator that we found that can kind of be a game changer for people is what we call the 4th dimension of competition, and that's taking a look at and addressing the experience that the actual end user is using, and that's where you can really have the most impact on the users and the organization. And just along those things, you know, along that line, a quote I really like from the great Maya Angelou: "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." So addressing that experience and addressing the person in there and how they're experiencing the platform itself is, you know, where you can have a game changer and really, you know, be a difference maker in that process. Focusing in on the user itself, you know, we did come up with personas, or at least one persona to start off with. And the persona we came up with was Bob, you know, who is a 58-year-old Pennsylvania 5th generation apple grower. And we kind of just mapped out what Bob is. It's always nice when we're creating something to put a face and a person behind it, you know, from the developer's perspective and also the people that are looking at the features and functionalities. If they can think of a person, it helps that story and helps create the actual features and functionality. When we're getting into the persona and the person, you know, we do also use a disc profile and kind of outline exactly where that person lies. I don't know if is anyone familiar with disc? And I guess a lot of people may be muted, but it's a real generalized profiling format. And you know, you can break it up into the quadrants that very simply: are you extroverted? You're in the top portion of the quadrant. If you're introverted, you're on the bottom portion of the quadrant. You know, are you more people oriented or are you more data oriented? You know, just to go through this, an extrovert that's more data oriented, a lot of the D's would be your CEO type people, a lot of leaders and people that are in charge. I's would be more people oriented and extroverted. They would be more of like your sales type people. And then on the bottom you have S's, which, sorry, I don't know why that went back. S's would be more people oriented but more introverted. A lot of HR people. These people want to support people in what they're doing. And then the C's are your compliance. They're your introverted, data oriented people. And although we're going to have growers and users in all of the system, we've talked a lot about this, and when the person is using the system, we feel that Bob was going to be more in a seat. He's going to want that data. He's going to want, all the information that is associated with what he's looking up, and he's going to want it to be credible, be able to do that research and dig into it a little bit. And generally, he's going to be, in a more introverted mode while doing this. This definitely does help out when taking a look at a platform. As you can imagine, a person in this quadrant is going to want to see more charts, graphs, data. If we found that we were building a system for more of an eye, you may see more stories and videos and that type of information, or at least that type of content to deliver the information. So where they fall in the quadrant often just impacts how the information is delivered to them within a platform, and that's why we kind of outline what that looks like. We also do want to understand the competence of the user. We thought that the majority or the primary user would probably be a little bit lower competence from a technology standpoint, but as far as their domain competence, knowledge about their farm and their trade, they're kind of off the charts, which is very unusual when we're building a platform. But they are the experts in their field. Having a lower technology competence and a higher domain competence just means that the content you're putting on there has to be very reputable, very align with their domain competence. It can't be dumbed down to what they're doing. It has to give them the information at a level that they feel is appropriate. And also from a technology competence standpoint, we want to coach them through this. It needs to be very easy to use, intuitive, simple. If there are steps that they're using for the first time, perhaps have things like onboarding, where it's coaching them through how to use the technology so that they can get through it and understand it from that level and be as proficient in it as possible as soon as possible. Another thing we did later on in the day is kind of take a look at the product mission and NEWA's why. This may look familiar to some people. One of the top 2 or 3 TED Talks of all time was done by Simon Sinek, and he also has a great book called Start With Why, and he's one of our clients. We kind of borrowed this from him. But a lot of organizations, or all organizations, actually know what they do. Most organizations know how they can do and can articulate that, or their unique value propositions, but very few organizations can express what their why is and why they do it. Apple does this very well. Starbucks does this very well. And it's one of the reasons why they're very successful in what they do and how they market and how they communicate that. The why we came up with NEWA was as the product has to be accurate, it has to be reliable, it has to be science-driven, and it must be personalized for the end user. It needs to allow the user to make informed decisions to reduce their production risk. And I think everyone can probably agree with that this certainly does have to do that. And from that, the mission of the actual product. So this is not the mission of NEWA, but it is the mission that we kind of came up together. And this is certainly a work in progress, but something that we think is applicable. Is that NEWA will provide accurate, reliable, and science-driven data that can be personalized for our grower needs, so that our growers can make timely and informed decisions to reduce crop production risk. So I think that was a real nice, concise way to state your why in a mission statement for the product and what the product's purpose is. Taking a look at the product's purpose, we also went through a lot of the concerns that people have while working with the website. Some of the things that we came up with is that it has to be easy to use, and we had a ton of different concerns that came up, and we kind of we categorized them into 5 categories. That it either had to be easy to use, provides timely and relevant content, gives accurate and reliable data, or it allows us to make informed decisions, and it personalized for my needs. So we took a look at this and did a Hoshin Star, which is an exercise where we take a look at what drives what. And we came up with the cascade of concerns. And what this is just that, most importantly, if we're building features, we're taking a look at things that we're going to be doing to the platform. First and foremost, we need to make sure that it gives us accurate and reliable data. From there, it certainly needs to be personalized for what the actual grower or what the actual user is looking for the system to do. It needs to be easy to use. And then a lot of these later things, if those first things are addressed, the later things will just fall into place. So it provides timely and relevant content, or allows me to make informed decisions. A great example is if I don't trust and or believe that the data is accurate and reliable, I can't make informed decisions. So, we have to look at these top priorities, and then we can take a look at this. This is helpful if there's a feature that we're building or we're debating between two features, and one feature is a usability feature, and another feature is to address the data reliability. We should be investing in the feature that is the data reliability piece of it. And that's one of the purposes of the cascade of concerns. Focusing in on the user, what we want to do for any platform or anything that we build is we want to build advocates for the system. People that'll stand at the top of the mountain and say, this is the best product, you guys need to get it on this, and you use this immediately. And we believe, and we talked a lot about that, this is done through micro experiences throughout everybody's interaction with the organization and with the platform and with the website and everything in between. And it actually acts as a ladder. And, we go through a lot of micro experiences in everything that we do. Customer service interruptions are a great example of this. But each micro interaction we have with a client or with a user can bring us up the ladder. Once we reach each one of these thresholds, it's very hard to get knocked down. So the first threshold that we want to try and look at and take a look at, how we can get our users there is just a trust threshold. This can be something as simple as, going onto a website, putting some things in a shopping cart, clicking checkout now, and it brings me to an entirely different web experience that I'm not sure is the same website or the same user, same organization. A lot of us would just click right off of that. So we do have to have consistency in the brand. It has to look reliable. It has to look like it comes from NEWA. It has to be up and running. I have to trust that it is something that I believe in, and that I believe it is valid. Once we have trust, we can start to build loyalty for our users. And this is the point where a user self-determines that this is the system I'm going to use. I have choices on different systems that I may use, or ways that I can go about getting the data and information that I need for this. But I'm going to use NEWA because I am a loyal user of this product. And then from there, you can bring people right to advocacy. And once you reach the advocacy threshold, it is very hard to bring someone down. A good example of this, I use a dog food company called Chewy, and they sent me a bag of dog food, and I have been a loyal user of their product, of their system for quite a while. And I finally got a bag of dog food, and it was not only late, but completely ripped when I received it. And I became a loyal, but I certainly was knocked down here. I called Chewy and said, listen, my bag of dog food's ripped. And before I was off the phone with them, I had an email confirming that they had sent me a free $50 bag of dog food, and it was on its way. And the person was on the phone, immediately helped me out. Took a service disruption and now had brought me from coming down the ladder to coming up the ladder to an advocate. And, as you see, I'm telling that story now. So, those little things where you can interact yourself to help people move up, these are things that we want to look at. And we talked about what that customer journey and how we can measure these things in the system and create these with NEWA as well. And we talked about the customer journey and for this particular platform. So when we're looking to measure things and looking to get people on the Trust platform, we want to take a look at how many total monthly profiles are set up. Are they connecting to the weather station? Total monthly usage of particular models, and we can put KPIs or key performance indicators within the system to measure these type of things. And when we see them dip, take a look at features that are going to drive trust, drive loyalty, drive advocacy. Some examples of things that are loyal is look at the total monthly average site users. Are people updating their profiles? Have I added a picture there? Are there other things that, have I saved my models? Have I saved other pieces in there once those features are available? And are they continually going back and using the system as a loyal user? And then, advocacy, they could be sharing different models, total number of tests, if they have testimonials or any case studies that they're responding to or providing for you. These are all things that could be in the system to show advocacy and actually have metrics behind understanding where they are in this process and how we can continually move people up the journey framework of trust, loyalty, and advocacy. We then went through and took a look at probably 40, 50 features that could be in the system and prioritize those, voted on them, what type of things are the highest priority in the roadmap for the people that were in the workshop. And what we came up with was that having a history and some personalization to the actual platform were certainly the top two priorities. And then weather station data, and you can get into the depth of what these features are, but also outage notification reporting and alerts and notification, text, email, and push notifications were the 5 top priorities that the people in the room kind of gathered as what they were looking for and what they needed out of the next system for NEWA. We did come up with some recommendations, and I'll let you guys read through what those are in more detail. But I chose this slide for recommendations because I think it's important to note that anytime we're building a software product, it is kind of like an iceberg principle. And there's certainly much more below the surface that we can't see than there is that you actually can see. And for this particular platform, as we were analyzing it and taking a look at the things that were needed, a lot of it is being sure that it's supportable, being sure that it's future ready, that we're managing risk, and that it's built efficiently and functioning. The user end and the user experience is the top piece and what everybody acknowledges and sees. But there are a lot of pieces. This is a very complex system with a lot of integration points and a lot of databases and weather stations. So there are a lot of moving parts here, and making sure that it's architected in a way and managed in a way that it is also taking a look at these other things is very important. Usability was the number one recommendation. From where we are today. Taking a look at how we can make that more of a joy to use, but also taking in long-term architectural pieces to what they need and have a more flexible architecture. And I don't know, if these terms will mean anything, if anyone has any questions, but having an open modular, open API that you can access and add things to. So have a more modular platform that we can, add pieces to here and there, integrate different types of systems. Also having a system that listens and allows us to react and do things that are going to move people up that loyalty ladder I mentioned earlier, so that we can implement things that the users need as well. And as I mentioned, there's certainly a lot more information on all of these topics within the product innovation plan. I did just want to give you a high level and some context to what the actual slides were, or what the document is. I'm certainly open to any questions people might have, and I know Dan may have some answers that maybe if I can't answer them for you. Does anyone have any questions at all?
Waste of time. It's just.
Okay. Like I said earlier, if you want to follow up afterwards and get in touch with me, that's fine. Mike, thank you very much for taking the time to put this together and talk with the group. I think that in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I will send a link to the recording, and I did take some notes to go along with this. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for signing on, and Mike, for your time.
Hey, Dan, I just have a quick question.
Yeah, Melanie.
Not about the presentation, but about onboarding our new stations.
Sure.
So you sent an online link. So once we do that, how long does it take for the weather station to be on board?
I'd say on average 2 to 3 business days.
Okay. All right.
We have a pretty quick turnaround, although it depends on like everything else happening. But Keith and I are working pretty hard to keep those being rolled out as they come in.
So I just have to use that link, right?
Yes.
Or can I send you the actual form that the grower fills out, or do I have to refill it in?
It would be good if you could fill it out, and then we'll take care of everything else from there.
Okay.
Great.
That sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
I should have 4 coming up soon.
Great. No, that's great.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.